The colony ship New Horizons shook like a dying animal as sparks flew from broken control panels. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge while alarms screamed their terrible song. Captain Jake Miller gripped his seat as the ship fell toward the unknown planet below. "Katie, hold on tight," Jake called to his 11-year-old daughter who sat strapped in behind him. The little girl had bright blue eyes and brown hair tied in pigtails. She was brave like her father, but fear showed on her young face as the ship spun out of control. "Dad, what's happening?" Katie asked, her voice shaking as the ship groaned around them. "The engines are dead," Jake said, trying to keep his voice calm for his daughter. "We're going to crash, but we'll be okay, I promise." Lisa Chen, the chief engineer, worked frantically at her station. Sweat dripped down her face as she tried to restart the failed systems. "I can't get anything working," she shouted over the noise. "We're going down hard." Ben Rodriguez, the ship's security officer, checked his restraints one more time. The big man had served in many battles, but this felt different. This felt final. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe 2 minutes," Lisa replied, her hands flying over the controls. "I'm trying to angle us toward that valley. It looks like water down there." Through the cracked view screen, Jake could see the alien world rushing up to meet them. Strange. Purple trees covered rolling hills, and silver rivers cut through the landscape like scars. It would have been beautiful if they weren't about to crash into it. "Everyone brace for impact," Jake ordered. The New Horizon hit the ground like a giant hammer striking an anvil. Metal screamed as the ship tore apart. Katie felt herself thrown forward against her straps as everything went dark. When Katie woke up, her head hurt and her left leg felt wrong. She tried to move, but pain shot through her body. Around her, pieces of the ship lay scattered like broken toys. Smoke rose from twisted metal, and she could smell something burning. "Dad!" she called out weakly. "Dad, where are you?" "I'm here, sweetheart." Jake's voice came from nearby. Crawled toward her through the wreckage, blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. "Are you hurt?" "My leg hurts, really." "Bad," Katie said, tears starting to fall. When she looked down, she could see her left leg was twisted in a way that wasn't right. The bone was probably broken. Jake examined her leg carefully, trying not to hurt her more. "It's broken, but we'll fix it. Don't worry." He looked around at the destroyed ship. Most of the passengers and crew were dead. Only a few people moved. Among the wreckage, Lisa Chen climbed out from under a fallen beam, holding her arm close to her body. "My shoulder's dislocated," she said through gritted teeth, "but I'm alive." Ben Rodriguez appeared from behind a piece of the hull, helping. An older woman named Mary Walshwalk. Mary had been a teacher on the colony ship, planning to start a school on their new world. Now she just looked scared and lost. "Is this everyone?" Jake asked, looking around at the 5 survivors. "I think so," Ben said sadly. The others didn't make it. They had crashed in a valley surrounded by those strange purple trees. The air smelled different here, like flowers mixed with metal. 2 suns hung in the alien sky, one orange and one pale yellow. Katie had never seen anything like it. For 3 days, they tried to survive in the wreckage. Jake made a splint for Katie's leg using pieces of the ship, but she still couldn't walk without help. They found some emergency food supplies and water, but not much. Ben tried to fix the radio, but it was too damaged. On the 4th day, they heard the sounds. Strange clicking and hissing noises came from the purple forest around them. The sounds got closer each hour, like something was watching them. Katie felt scared when she heard them, and she stayed close to her father. "What do you think it is?" Mary whispered, as they huddled together in what was left of the ship's main cabin. "Local wildlife, maybe," Ben said, but his hand stayed near his weapon. "Could be curious about the crash?" They were wrong. The Vorthok came at dawn on the 5th day. They moved through the trees like shadows, their scaly green skin helping them blend with the strange forest. Each one stood about 7 feet tall with long arms and sharp claws. Their heads looked like those of giant lizards with yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the morning light. Katie saw them first. "Dad," she whispered, pointing toward the tree line. Jake turned and felt his blood turn cold. Dozens of the alien creatures surrounded their camp, all carrying weapons that looked like metal spears with glowing tips. The beings stood perfectly still, just watching the humans with those terrible yellow eyes. One of them stepped forward. This one was bigger than the others, and wore what looked like armor made from black metal. Symbols were carved into the armor that seemed to move and shift when Katie looked at them. The creature opened its mouth and spoke in a voice like grinding stone. Primitive creatures, it said in perfect English, though how it knew their language, none of them could guess. Crash on sacred Vorthok land. You will come with us. We don't want any trouble, Jake said, standing up slowly with his hands visible. Our ship crashed. We're just trying to survive. The big alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was cold and cruel. Trouble, you small weak things, could not make trouble for mighty Vorthok. Look at you. One of your spawn is broken and useless. It pointed at Katie with one long claw. Katie felt hurt and anger rise in her chest. She tried to stand up to show she wasn't useless, but her broken leg wouldn't hold her weight. She fell back down with a cry of pain. Leave her alone, Jake said, moving to stand in front of his daughter. She's just a child. A weak child that cannot even stand, the alien said. Perfect for the great Paraxis. He enjoys the taste of young, helpless prey. More Vorthok emerged from the forest, surrounding the humans completely. They clicked and hissed to each other in their own language, and Katie could tell they were laughing at the survivors. It made her feel small and scared. What? Do you want with us? Lisa asked, trying to sound brave. You will serve a great purpose, the leader said. The eternal dragon grows hungry, and tradition demands we feed him. You soft creatures will satisfy his appetite and keep him from our cities. Ben reached for his weapon, but 3 Vorthok spears pointed at his chest before he could draw it. I wouldn't, the leader said with that cold laugh. Your death here would be quick. The dragon's hunger lasts much longer. They were forced to march through the purple forest, with the Vorthok poking them with their spears whenever someone moved. Too slowly. Jake carried Katie on his back because she couldn't walk on her broken leg. Every step hurt her, but she tried not to cry out because she didn't want to give the aliens more reason to mock them. The Vorthok talked among themselves as they walked, sometimes in English so the humans could understand their cruel words. They called humans soft meat and crying babies. They laughed about how weak and pathetic the survivors looked. The little broken one will be first, one of them said, looking at Katie. Dragons prefer the young and wounded. They screamed the prettiest songs. Katie buried her face against her father's shoulder, trying not to listen. But she could feel the alien eyes on her, studying her like she was nothing more than food for their monster. She had never felt so helpless in her life, but something deep inside her refused to give up hope as they walked deeper into the alien forest. Katie didn't know that her greatest test was just beginning. She also didn't know that what the Vorthok thought was her greatest weakness would soon become humanity's greatest strength. The Vorthok city rose from the alien landscape like a massive wound in the earth. Black towers twisted toward the sky, connected by bridges that looked like giant spider webs. Strange lights pulsed through the dark buildings, and the air smelled of metal and sulfur. Katie clung to her father's back as they were marched through the city gates. Crowds of Vorthok gathered to stare at the human prisoners. The aliens pointed and hissed, their yellow eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. Some threw small rocks that bounced off the humans harmlessly but still hurt. Look at the broken little one, called out a Vorthok female, her voice sharp like breaking glass. She could not even walk on her own weak legs. Soft creatures, another. Alien laughed. No wonder they fell from the sky. They are too weak to fly. Jake's jaw tightened with anger, but he kept walking. He could feel Katie trembling against his back, and he whispered to her, Don't listen to them, sweetheart. I don't know what they're talking about. But Dad, what if they're right? Katie whispered back, What if I am weak and useless? You're the strongest person I know, Jake said firmly. And I'm going to get you out of this. The prisoners were taken to a large building in the center of the city. Inside, the walls were covered with carvings of dragons and flames. High Commander Zextal waited for them in a great hall. sitting on a throne made from what looked like black bones. Zextal was the largest Vorthok Katie had ever seen. His scales were darker than the others, almost black, and scars covered his arms and face. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "So these are the Skyfallers," he said, looking down at the humans with disgust. "Pathetic creatures. Look how they huddled together like frightened children." "We're not children," Ben said, stepping forward. "We're travelers who crashed on your world by accident. We mean no harm." Zextal made that terrible laughing sound. "Harm. You could not harm a Vorthok infant, let alone a warrior. You are prey, nothing more." He stood up from his throne and walked down to examine the prisoners more closely. His yellow eyes studied each human like a farmer looking at livestock. When he reached Katie, still on her father's back, he stopped. "This one is damaged," he said, touching Katie's splinted leg with one sharp claw. Katie winced in pain. "Perfect. The great Paraxis prefers his offerings young and broken." They cried the sweetest tears. "Oh," Jake said, pulling away from the alien leader. "You can't have her. Take me instead." "Dad." "No," Katie whispered, but her father ignored her. "I'm bigger, stronger," Jake continued. "I'd be a better sacrifice than a little girl." Zextal found this very funny. "You think you can bargain with the High Commander of the Vorthok? You think your size matters to an eternal dragon? Foolish creature. The dragon cares nothing for strength. He enjoys the fear of the weak and helpless." Lisa Chen stepped forward, her injured arms still held close to her body. "This is barbaric. She's just a child." "What kind of beings sacrifice children to monsters?" "Smart beings," Zexal replied. "Beings who know how to survive. For 1,000 years, the dragon has terrorized our world. But we learned to make deals with the beast. We give him what he wants, and he leaves our cities alone. And what he wants is children," Mary Walsh asked, her voice shaking with horror. "He wants fear. He wants pain. Wants the helpless to scream as he devours them. This broken little one will provide all of these things beautifully." Ben tried to move forward, but 6 Vorthok guards surrounded him with their glowing spears. "You're all cowards," he spat. "Hiding behind a monster instead of fighting it?" "We tried fighting," Zextal said. "Many died. Then we learned wisdom. Now we prosper while the dragon sleeps, fed on the tears of the weak." The High Commander clapped his hands, and more guards entered the hall. "Take the broken one to the sacred mountain. Chain her at the altar as tradition demands. The dragon will come at sunset." "No," Jake shouted, trying to hold on to his daughter as the guards pulled her away. "Katie, I won't let them take you." But there were too many of them. The Vorthok pried Katie from her father's back despite his struggles. She cried out as they grabbed her injured leg, fresh pain shooting through her body. "Dad, help me." She screamed as they carried her toward the door. Jake fought like a wild animal, but the aliens were too strong. They held him back while his daughter was taken away. "I'll find you," Katie called out. "I promise I'll find you." The other humans were locked in a cell deep beneath the building, but Jake was taken to a window high in one of the towers. Zextal wanted him to watch what happened to his daughter. "See how your spawn feeds the great beast," the High Commander said. "Learn why the Vorthok are the rulers of this world while you are just meat." Through the window, Jake could see the sacred mountain in the distance. It was a tall peak made of black rock and crystal, with a cave entrance that glowed with red light. Even from far away, he could see the small figure being chained to an altar at the cave mouth. "She's so little," Jake whispered, tears running down his face. "How can you do this to a child?" "Because children break easily," Zextal replied without emotion. "And broken things please the dragon most." The sacred mountain, Katie lay chained to a cold stone altar. Her broken leg throbbed with pain, and the metal chains were too heavy for her small arms to lift. The Vorthok, who had brought her here, stood at a safe distance, waiting for the dragon to appear. "Why are you doing this?" Katie asked them. "I'd never hurt anyone. That is why you are perfect," one of the guards replied. "The dragon grows angry when we bring him warriors who might fight back. He prefers prey that can only weep and beg." "I won't beg," Katie said, though her voice shook with fear. "I won't give you the satisfaction." The guards found this amusing. "All prey begs in the end, little soft skin." When you see the dragon's teeth, you will scream like all the others. The two suns began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The temperature dropped quickly. Katie shivered on the cold stone, her thin clothes offering little protection against the mountain wind. Then she heard it sound like distant thunder that seemed to come from deep within the mountain. The ground shook slightly, and small rocks fell from the cave entrance above her. The Vorthok guards backed away even further, fear showing in their yellow eyes for the first time. "He comes," one of them whispered. "The Eternal One awakens." Hot air began to flow from the cave, carrying with it the smell of sulfur and something else. Something ancient and terrible that made Katie's skin crawl with instinctive fear. The thunder grew louder, and now Katie could tell it wasn't thunder at all. It was breathing, massive, slow breathing that echoed through the mountain like the wind through a vast cathedral. "Dad," she whispered, looking toward the distant city. "I'm scared." But Jake couldn't hear her, could only watch helplessly from his tower prison as his daughter faced the most terrible moment of her young life. Red light began to glow, brighter from the cave entrance. The breathing grew closer. Somewhere in the darkness above, something huge began to move. Katie closed her eyes and tried to be brave. She thought about her father and how proud he would be if she faced this monster with courage. She thought about the other humans counting on her to be strong. She didn't know that her courage was about to change everything. She didn't know that. What the Vorthok saw as weakness was actually the rarest gift in the galaxy. All she knew was that something was coming, and she would meet it with her head held high, no matter how much she wanted to cry. The dragon emerged from the cave like a living mountain of shadow and flame. Paraxis, the Eternal, was larger than anything Katie had ever imagined. His body stretched over 100 feet long, covered in scales that looked like black mirrors reflecting the dying light of the two suns. His wings, when he spread them, blocked out half the sky. Katie's breath caught in her throat as she stared up at the massive creature. The dragon's eyes were the most terrifying thing of all. They glowed like dying stars, ancient and intelligent, and filled with a sadness so deep it seemed to go on forever. The Vorthok guards had retreated to the bottom of the mountain, leaving Katie alone with the beast. She could hear them chanting in their strange language, probably prayers of thanks that the dragon would be fed and their cities would be safe for another season. Paraxis moved slowly toward the altar, each step making the ground shake. His great head lowered until it was just a few feet from Katie's small body. She could feel the heat from his breath and smell the ancient scent of sulfur and starfire that clung to his scales. For a long moment, dragon and child simply stared at each other. Katie expected the beast to roar or snap at her with those terrible teeth, but instead, Paraxis tilted his massive head like a curious cat. Then something impossible happened. A voice spoke inside Katie's mind, deep and sad and older than mountains. "Another offering," the voice said. "Another frightened creature brought to feed my loneliness. But you are different, little one. You do not smell of fear and hatred like the others." Katie blinked in surprise. "You can talk?" "I can do many things the Vorthok have forgotten," Paraxis replied, his mental voice carrying a weight of countless years. "They think I am merely a beast to be fed. They do not remember when my kind helped build the first cities of this world." The dragon lowered his head even closer, and Katie could see her own reflection in his dark scales. "You are not from this world," he observed. "Your scent is strange and new." "What are you, small creature?" "I'm human," Katie said, surprised by how calm she felt. "My name is Katie Miller. My dad and I were traveling to a new home when our ship crashed." Human Paraxis repeated the words slowly. "I have never encountered your species, yet there is something about you that calls to memories I thought were lost forever." The dragon's great eye focused on Katie's broken leg. "You are injured yet? You do not weep or beg for mercy." Katie thought about the question. "'Cause crying won't fix my leg or get me home to my dad. I don't think begging would stop you if you really wanted to hurt me." Something that might have been amusement flickered in the dragon's ancient eyes. Wisdom from one so young? "Tell me, Katie Miller, do you hate me for what I am about to do to you?" "I don't know what you're about to do," Katie replied honestly. "And I don't think I hate anyone." My dad taught me that hate just makes everything worse. Paraxis pulled back slightly, clearly surprised. The Vorthok bring me creatures filled with terror and rage. They scream curses at me even as I end there, suffering quickly. But you speak of wisdom and forgiveness.
Oh, strange.
Are you going to eat me? Katie asked, trying to keep her voice steady. That was my intention, the dragon admitted. But now I find myself curious. Why, for 3,000 years I've accepted the Vorthok offerings because they eased my loneliness for brief moments. Fear and pain of my meals provided a bitter companionship. But you offer something different. What do I offer? Understanding, Paraxis said simply. When you look at me, you do not see only a monster. You see a being who might be lonely, just as you are lonely now. The dragon began to move around the altar, examining Katie from different angles. Your species possesses something I have not encountered in millennia. The ability to truly see others, not just their shells, but their inner selves. Everyone feels things, Katie said. Scary things like dragons, I guess. Dad always said that mean people are usually just sad or hurt inside. Your father sounds wise. He is. He's probably really worried about me right now. Paraxis stopped his circling and looked toward the distant Vorthok city. He watches from the tower. His grief burns like a beacon across the valley. The bond between you is strong. Can you really sense that? I can sense many things. Emotions. Thoughts. The connections between living beings. It is a gift of my kind, though it has become more of a curse over the centuries. The Vorthok radiate such hatred and fear that being near them is painful. The dragon's massive head came close to Katie again. But you, small human, you radiate something else entirely. Compassion. Hope. Love for your father that shines brighter than the stars. Katie felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but not from fear. I just want to see him again. I want us to be safe. Safety, Paraxis mused. I remember when I believed in such things, before the wars, before my mate was killed, by those who feared our power, before I became the last of my kind on this world. You're alone too, Katie realized. That's why you're so sad. I can see it in your eyes. The dragon went very still. You can see my sadness. It's like looking into a deep, dark lake. Duh. It goes down so far I can't see the bottom. Paraxis said nothing. Then, to Katie's amazement, the great beast began to glow. Soft light emanated from his scales, starting as a dim flicker and growing stronger until it bathed the entire mountaintop in gentle radiance. In 3,000 years, the dragon whispered, no creature has looked at me and seen anything but death and destruction, but you see the pain I carry. You see the loneliness that has eaten at my soul like acid. Why don't you just leave? Katie asked. Find somewhere else to live where people aren't mean to you. Because this is my home, Paraxis replied. My ancestors built the first temples here. My mate is buried in these mountains. Could not abandon her memory, even when staying meant accepting a life of bitter solitude. The dragon's tail moved, and Katie tensed, expecting pain. Instead, the tip of the tail gently touched the chains that bound her to the altar. The metal dissolved like mist, freeing her arms and legs. You're letting me go? Katie asked in amazement. I am doing something I have not done in millennia, Paraxis said. I'm choosing hope over hunger. Companionship over consumption. Dragon lowered his great wing toward the altar, creating a ramp that Katie could use to climb onto his back despite her injured leg. Come, little human. Let me show you something that no Vorthok has ever seen. Katie hesitated for only a moment, before climbing carefully onto the dragon's back. His scales were warm beneath her hands. She could feel the ancient power that flowed through his massive body. Paraxis rose into the air, with powerful beats of his wings. As they climbed higher into the darkening sky, he shared something with Katie that made her gasp in wonder. Memories flowed from his mind to hers, showing her the true history of this world. She saw dragons and other species working together to build great cities. She saw libraries filled with knowledge from across the galaxy. She saw a time when beings of all kinds lived in harmony, sharing their gifts and learning from each other. This is what was lost, Paraxis explained as they soared above the clouds. This is what the Vorthok forgot, when fear overcame wisdom. They chose to see dragons as beasts rather than partners. They chose sacrifice over cooperation. But it doesn't have to stay that way, Katie said, understanding beginning to dawn in her young mind. Maybe we can help them remember. We, Dragon asked. Humans are good at helping people understand each other, Katie said with growing confidence. It's kind of what we do. Maybe that's why our ship crashed here. Maybe we're supposed to help fix what's broken. Paraxis flew in thoughtful silence for several minutes. Then he began to descend toward the Vorthok city, where thousands of aliens waited in terror for their sacrifice to be completed. Perhaps you are right, little Katie Miller, the dragon said. Perhaps it is time for this world to remember what it truly means to live without fear. As they approached the city, Katie could see her father's face pressed against the tower window. She waved to him, and even from that distance, she could see his joy and amazement. The dragon was no longer her enemy. And somehow, Katie knew that everything was about to change. The dawn sun cast long shadows across the Vorthok city as Paraxis descended from the sky with Katie on his back. The sight caused panic in the streets below. Hundreds of aliens ran for cover, thinking their dragon god had come to destroy them. For some unknown failure, but this time was different. This time, the dragon carried a living passenger. Instead of empty claws stained with blood, Katie held tight to the dragon's neck spikes as they landed in the great plaza before the High Commander's palace. Her broken leg no longer hurt. During their flight, Paraxis had used his ancient healing magic to mend the bone and ease her pain. She could walk again, and more importantly, she could stand tall before those who had called her weak. Vorthok guards surrounded them immediately. Their glowing spears pointed at Katie and the dragon, but their hands shook with fear, and none dared to move closer. High Commander Zextal emerged from his palace with his personal guard, his face showing confusion and rage. What is this? Zextal demanded, his voice echoing across the plaza. Why does the great Paraxis return with his offering still alive? Why does he not feast and return to his cave as tradition demands? Paraxis lowered his massive head until his burning eyes were level with the High Commander. When he spoke, his voice was like controlled thunder, and every Vorthok in the plaza could hear him clearly. Because, foolish child, I am tired of your bitter offerings. I am tired of your fear and hatred. This small human has shown me something I had forgotten existed in this galaxy. The gathered aliens gasped and fell back in terror. In all their recorded history, the dragon had never spoken to them directly. They had believed him to be nothing more than a hungry beast that could be appeased with sacrifices. You speak? Zexel stammered, his arrogance cracking like old stone. But you are just an animal, a creature of instinct and hunger. I am older than your civilization, Paraxis replied coldly. I was ancient when your ancestors first crawled from there. Caves. I built the first cities on this world alongside beings who understood cooperation instead of fear. Katie slid down from the dragon's back, her newly healed legs strong beneath her. She walked forward until she stood between Paraxis and the frightened Vorthok soldiers. Her small human form looked tiny compared to the massive beings around her. But something about her presence made everyone stop and listen. He's not a monster, Katie said, her young voice carrying clearly in the morning air. He's lonely. He's been lonely for thousands of years because you were too scared to try to understand him. Lies, Zexlaw snarled, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. The dragon is a beast. We feed him to keep him from destroying our cities. Was the last time he actually attacked your cities? Katie asked. When was the last time he demanded sacrifices, or did anything except wait in his cave for you to bring him prisoners? The High Commander opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. The truth was that Parakees had never attacked their cities. For generations, the Vorthok had simply assumed he would if they stopped the sacrifices. An old Vorthok female stepped forward from the crowd. Her scales were gray with age, and she moved slowly, but with dignity. I am Keeper Vexara, she said. I maintain the old records. The child speaks truth. There are no records of dragon attacks. It's only records of our offerings. Silence, old fool, Zextal snapped. The traditions exist for good reason. The traditions exist because you chose fear over wisdom, Paraxis said. You decided it was easier to sacrifice the innocent than to risk communication with something you did not understand. Jake Miller's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Katie. The crowd parted as Jake ran toward his daughter, followed by Ben, Lisa, and Mary. The other human survivors had been released from their prison cell when the guards fled in panic at the dragon's return. Katie ran to her father and threw her arms around him. Dad, I'm okay. Look, my leg is all better. Jake held his daughter tight, tears streaming down his face. I thought I'd lost you forever, he whispered. When I saw you on that dragon's back, I didn't know what to think. Paraxis is my friend. Now, Katie said simply, he's not mean at all. He's just been sad and lonely for a very long time. Ben Rodriguez stared up at the massive dragon with professional interest. So you're intelligent. You can communicate. Why didn't you ever try to talk to the Vorthok before? Would you try to communicate with beings who only brought you fear and hatred? Paraxis asked. For centuries, every creature they sent me was filled with terror and rage. They cursed me even as they died. I began to believe that intelligent conversation was impossible on this world. Lisa Chen, her engineer's mind already working, stepped forward. But Katie changed that. She wasn't afraid of you, not really. She was just a scared kid who saw another scared being. Your daughter possesses a gift that is rare in this galaxy, Paraxis told Jake. The ability to see past surface appearances to the truth beneath. She saw my loneliness, when others saw only a monster. Mary Walsh, the former teacher, looked around at the gathered Vorthok with new understanding. They're scared too, aren't they? They've been living in fear of you for generations, never knowing that you were just as lonely as they were frightened. Fear breeds fear, Katie said, remembering something her father had taught her, but understanding can break the cycle. Zextal, however, was not ready to accept this new reality. Even if the dragon can speak, it changes nothing. It is still dangerous. It could still destroy us all if it chose. Just as you could destroy me if you chose, Paraxis replied. Just as these humans could harm you if they wished. The capacity for destruction does not make one evil. It is the choice that matters. What choice? The High Commander demanded. Katie looked up at the dragon, then at her father, then at the crowd of frightened Vorthok. An idea was forming in her mind, something that could change everything. What if we made a different choice? She said. What if instead of being scared of each other, we tried to be friends? The suggestion caused murmurs of disbelief throughout the crowd. Vorthok whispered to each other in their harsh language, while the dragon tilted his great head thoughtfully. Hey. Friends, Paraxis mused. I had almost forgotten that word. It has been so long since I had a friend. But how? Asked Keeper Vexara, genuine curiosity in her ancient voice. How does one become friends with a dragon? The same way you become friends with anyone, Katie said. You talk to them, you listen to them, you try to understand how they feel and what they need, and what do you need? Jake asked the dragon directly. Companionship, Paraxis answered without hesitation. Knowledge, purpose. For 3,000 years, I have done nothing but exist. I have forgotten what it means to grow, to learn, to contribute to something greater than myself. What about you? Katie asked the gathered Vorthok. What do you need? Scowled, but other voices spoke up from the crowd. Safety for our children, called out one alien. Knowledge of the old ways, said another. An end to the fear, whispered a third. Katie smiled, the same bright smile that had melted her father's heart countless times. See, you all want the same things. You want to be safe and happy and to learn new things. Maybe you can help each other get what you want. The child speaks wisdom, Keeper Vexura said. Perhaps it is time to try a new path. But the traditions? Zextal protested weakly. Traditions should serve the living, not trap them in cycles of fear, Paraxis said. I propose we create new traditions, better ones. Katie clapped her hands together excitedly, like what? The dragon's eyes glowed brighter as hope rekindled in his ancient heart. Like teaching, like sharing knowledge, like building something beautiful together, instead of feeding on fear and death. You would do this? Keeper Vexara asked. You would share the old wisdom with us. If you would share your new discoveries with me, Paraxis replied. Knowledge grows when it is shared, not hoarded. Jake put his hand on his daughter's shoulder. You did this, he said with pride. You brought them together. They all did it, Katie corrected. But maybe humans are good at helping people understand each other. Maybe that's our special gift. As the morning sun climbed higher, something new began to take shape in the plaza. It's not an ending, but a beginning. The first tentative steps toward a future where fear no longer ruled, where understanding could flourish, and where a lonely dragon and a frightened people could find friendship instead of terror. The age of sacrifice was ending. The age of cooperation was about to begin. 3 months after Katie first rode on Paraxis's back, the Vorthok city looked like a completely different place. Where once there had been dark towers reaching toward the sky like angry fists, now there were open gardens and learning centers. The smell of sulfur and metal had been replaced by the scent of growing things and clean air. Katie sat in the newly built classroom, teaching a group of young Vorthok how to speak with their emotions instead of just their words. Her father Jake watched from the doorway, still amazed by how much his little girl had grown in such a short time. Remember, Katie said to her students, it's not about what you say, but how you feel when you say it. Paraxis can sense your emotions. So if you're angry or scared, he'll know even if you try to hide it. A young Vorthok named Kekstar raised his clawed hand. But what if we are scared? Is it wrong to feel fear? Fear isn't wrong, Katie explained patiently. Everyone feels scared sometimes. Even me, even my dad, even Paraxis. The important thing is not to let fear control you or make you hurt others. Outside the classroom window, they could see Paraxis himself working with a group of adult Vorthok engineers. The great dragon was using his ancient knowledge to help them design better buildings. Ones that worked with the natural flow of the planet instead of fighting against it. The changes hadn't come easily. High Commander Zextal had fought against the new ways for weeks, insisting that the old traditions were safer. But when other Vorthok cities heard about what was happening, they sent representatives to see for themselves. Word spread quickly that the city of Kexamiron had found a way to live without fear. Ben Rodriguez entered the classroom, carrying a report pad. Katie, we just got another message from the outer settlements. 3 more cities want to send delegations to learn about the human way of communication. It's not just the human way, Katie said, getting up from her teaching circle. It's the way anyone can learn if they want to understand each other. Jake smiled as he watched his daughter. She had become something he never could have imagined when they first crashed on this world. She wasn't just a child anymore, but she wasn't quite an adult either. She was something new, something the galaxy had needed for a long time. Lisa Chen appeared in the doorway, excitement written across her face. You need to see this, she said. Our long-range sensors just picked up something big. They all hurried to the communications center that had been built in the main plaza. Keeper Vexara was there with several other Vorthok, all staring at a large screen showing the space above their planet. Ships, Lisa said simply. Human ships. A whole fleet of them.
All day, Jake.
Jake felt his heart jump. Rescue? More than that, Ben said, studying the readings. That's Admiral Parker's signature. The Defiant. Dawn and at least 20 support vessels. They came looking for us. Katie pressed her face against the window, trying to see the ships in the sky above. Will they try to take us away? I don't know, sweetheart, Jake said. But we'll make sure they understand what we've built here before we make any decisions. Paraxis appeared outside the communications center, his massive form casting a shadow over the building. The ships carry fear, he said, his voice reaching everyone inside through their mental link. The humans aboard are prepared for war. They believe. Their people are in danger. We need to show them that we're safe, Katie said, and that we've made friends here. Admiral Susan Parker's voice crackled through the communications system an hour later. This is Admiral Parker of the Earth Defense Fleet, to any human survivors on the surface. We've come to extract you from hostile territory. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Jake took the microphone. Admiral, this is Captain Jake Miller of the colony ship New Horizon. We're alive and well, but the situation here isn't what you might expect. Captain Miller? Susan's voice showed surprise. Our records show your ship was destroyed. How many survivors do you have? 5 humans survived the crash, Jake replied. But Admiral, we're not in hostile territory. We've established peaceful relations with the local population. There was a long pause before Susan responded. Captain, our intelligence suggests this planet is controlled by a hostile alien species that practices ritual sacrifice. We're prepared to use force if necessary. To extract you, Katie took the microphone from her father, Admiral Parker.
This is Katie Miller.
I know this might sound weird, but could you maybe come down and talk to us before you do anything with your big guns? Another pause, longer this time. Katie Miller. According to our records, you're 11 years old. I'm still 11, Katie said cheerfully. But I've learned a lot since we crashed. I've made some really amazing friends here, and I think you'd like to meet them too. Katie, Susan's voice became gentler. Are you being forced to say this? Are you in danger? The only danger would be if you started shooting before you understood what's really happening here, Katie replied honestly. Jake took the microphone. Back. Admiral, I know this is hard to believe, but my daughter has accomplished something incredible here. She's created a bridge between our species and theirs. What we've built here could change how humans interact with alien civilizations. Throughout the galaxy, Ben added his voice to the conversation. Admiral, this is Lieutenant Rodriguez. I can confirm that we are here by choice and that the local population has become our allies. We've discovered something that Earth Command needs to know about. The fleet remained in orbit for 2 full days while Admiral Parker tried to understand what her people were telling her. Finally, she agreed to come down with a small diplomatic team to see the situation for herself. Katie was the first to greet the Admiral when her shuttle landed in the plaza. Susan Parker was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She looked around at the mixed groups of humans and Vorthok working together and shook her head in amazement. This isn't what I expected to find, Susan admitted. Most people don't expect to see humans and aliens being friends, Katie said. But it's really not that hard once you try. Paraxis emerged from behind one of the buildings, moving slowly so as not to frighten the newcomers. Several of Admiral Parker's guards raised their weapons, but she held up a hand to stop them. Let me guess, Susan said to Katie. This is one of your friends? This is Paraxis, Katie said proudly. He's really old and really smart, and he knows more about space and science than probably anyone in the galaxy. The dragon lowered his great head in a polite bow. Welcome to our world, Admiral Parker. Your people speak highly of you. Susan stared at the dragon for a long moment, then at Katie, then at the bustling city around them where humans and aliens worked side by side. Finally, she began to laugh. Earth Command is never going to believe this, she said. That's okay, Katie replied. They don't have to believe it. They just have to see it. Over the following weeks, more ships arrived. Scientists, diplomats, and curious officials came to study what had become known as the Katie Protocol, the method of interspecies communication based on empathy and emotional honesty. Katie found herself appointed as Earth's youngest ambassador, a position she accepted on the condition that she could continue teaching young Vorthok and that Paraxis would be her official advisor. Jake watched his daughter give a presentation to a room full of Earth's top officials, explaining how fear and misunderstanding could be overcome through simple kindness and genuine interest in others. She stood confidently before beings who had decades more experience than her, but they listened to every word. The thing is, Katie said to the assembled crowd, every species has feelings. They might show them differently or think about them differently, but everyone wants to be understood and accepted. If we remember that, we can be friends with almost anyone. As the months passed, the Vorthok world became the first official interspecies colony in human space. Other alien civilizations, hearing about the success, reached out to establish their own diplomatic relations. Katie continued to grow, but she never lost the simple wisdom that had saved both her and paraxis from lives of loneliness and fear. She became living proof that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages, and that courage and kindness could change the galaxy. Years later, when historians wrote about the beginning of the Galactic Alliance, they would mark it as starting with a single moment when a broken 11-year-old girl looked at a lonely dragon and chose understanding over fear. Katie Miller had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or military might, but the simple ability to see others as friends rather than enemies. And in doing so, she had given both humans and aliens something they had been searching for without knowing it, a way to never be alone again.